We got to get to our guy, Chris Knoche, in just 1 second, but my phone was recording everything I was saying and trying to send it to my buddy Kyle Gibson.
Oh, no.
Who pitches for the Orioles.
Oh, no.
Like, read that. What is that text?
Okay.
What is it with me and relievers?
I'm not going to send it, I promise.
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
What is it with me and relievers?
Stretch out. Okay, stretch out of Grant and Danny. We'll take up to 6:30. Nats play Blue Jays in 1 hour. Rogers Center in Toronto. Have ever been to that ballpark there? A bunch of covered LCS for the MLB Network radio for you. This is the
it's just what we
were
saying.
Trying to keep up. Yeah. No. There's also a hotel out behind center field. Did you guys see the video of Colton Cowher launching a baseball up to like the very top row of the hotel rooms? Another funny thing, but still funny. So earmuffs, everyone. There are some like viral videos of like games in the sixth, which is quiet in there. Nobody's there. And there are some people enjoying themselves in the hotel room.
Yeah.
Very obviously like that window open, et cetera, et cetera. Not as bad as what you said to Kinsler.
Not as bad. All right. No good transition, but let's go to the Rude guest hotline right now. Rude, the most reliable heating and air conditioning products in the DMV, and apologize for how this segment has begun.
Sorry, Chris.
Just a couple of guys off the rails here. Let's get to business with our guy, Chris Knoche. What's up, Chris?
That's a hell of an intro right there. That is, I've been on the station 1,000 times. That's as good as you can get.
Not
for sure.
You ever stayed in the outfield?
I was going to say, have you been to the Rogers Center? Shock style.
Oh boy!
Wow.
All right, well, let's talk Maryland basketball. So before we get to what's next, because I do want your insight on where they go from here, what is your take on how Willard handled the last 2 weeks?
How about clown-like? Is that a I just think it was as poorly handled as you could have done it. And, in retrospect, and you have the benefit of a little bit of history now in your rear view, it's hard for me, fellas, to think that this deal wasn't done a month or 6 weeks ago. Everything you think about these things. Any coach in America who's got the kind of team he did at Maryland would be worried about distractions as you get into the NCAA tournament. Those distractions became man-made by their head coach. There was never any word or inkling from Villanova or Villanova's camp about any other candidates. That is a great sports town. There's some great sports journalism there. Never a peep about other candidates. And I'd heard from a lot of friends, some of whom are basketball coaches in that town, that Willard was wired into that situation. So in retrospect, it feels like it was done a long time ago. And all the public hand-wringing that we saw from him was really more of an act that he started at Seton Hall before he left for Maryland, and then we just saw him almost word for word say the exact same thing. Angst-ridden guy. I haven't talked to my family. I haven't talked to my agent, yada, yada, yada. And I was on the trip with a team out west, and I may have my travel privileges revoked after saying this, but I will tell you that there were people there that looked a lot like his wife and kids on that trip. So to think that,
well, they just didn't have any time to talk.
There's no speaking time there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he was watching film the whole time. So I don't know. It just defies logic. It was handled so poorly. And the other thing it did too, there are two byproducts of this too. And I mentioned this to Doc when I was on the air with him yesterday. It made it so Maryland fans couldn't enjoy a Sweet 16 moment. When Derek Queen hits that shot, they're the toast of college basketball for a matter of a couple of hours, and then all the Willard shenanigans started. And so you don't even get a chance to really appreciate that and have fun with that after 10 years of not being able to get to the Sweet 16. And then lastly, and I'm sorry, this is a long-winded answer to your question, but the last thing is that there were some really great candidates that would have been ideal for this position if he hadn't left everybody hanging. And those guys are gone. Now it's a fantastic job. It's a great college basketball coaching job. They're going to get somebody good. But there were a couple of guys out there, whether it's Ryan Odom at VCU or the guy at Colorado State's just fantastic. Nico Medved, just fantastic. And those guys are now, of course, long gone on the market. So there's so many parts to this that kind of stink. I'm not sure where to start. How did I do?
Pretty darn good, Chris. Chris Knoche with us here on G&D. So so help me understand something. You're much closer to this than I am. So if we go with the premise, and I think what you said made a lot of sense, that this was all but locked in, him going to Villanova, that what was he doing? What it looked like to me, Chris, is the kerosene was dumped on the Maryland program with the whole press conference and outing the AD and all this other kind of stuff. Dumped the kerosene, sitting there holding the match going, I'll drop it. I'll drop it unless I get all these things I want. What was that if this was already kind of a done deal?
It's creating a narrative. So if and when he left, these are the reasons why I've made them all public. And in fact, all those things, and I, it's hard to argue with some of the things that he wanted to make sure that he was in line and competitive with the people he recruits against. They gave him virtually everything he wanted. The last offer sheet he got had absolutely all those things on there. They're also bringing a new practice facility online next month. Every box was checked. It was just simply, it was a public airing of the grievances so that he could sort of document, here's why I'm going to leave.
Chris Knoche calls Maryland basketball games with Johnny Holiday on the radio, joining us on Grant and Danny here on The Fan. You went into the candidates that may have made sense had the timing been better. What does that pool look like now?
I think that people are back channeling this. I think you've got a lot of sitting Power 5 coaches that are really intrigued. While there are no Big Ten teams remaining in the tournament, it's a very strong conference in a lot of ways, not just the level of competition. It's also the financial stability, the TV contract, the TV money is just outrageous. There are a lot of positive reasons to be a part of this program. So my guess is, and I'm not a part of this, and thank God I'm not, but my guess is that there's a lot of back channeling going on. And of course, there'll be some young guys that want the job that you want to make sure you talk to, even if it's just briefly. This job has to be filled pretty quickly. Every day you're out of the portal. The transfer portal means you're a couple miles behind. So I know they've got an open AD position. This is one of those ass backwards things where they'll hire a basketball coach well before they hire the AD. It's out of necessity at this point.
Yeah, not ideal, but it's Argo, man. Best of the bad ideas, I guess. Right?
Exactly.
You gotta figure it out as you go. What do you make of this perception that they have to hire a Maryland guy, like a Michigan man kind of thing? And I ask that because I am not a believer in shrinking your talent pool and hiring processes generally. Like, my issue with Moneyball over the years was, wait, so you're telling me I can't draft the best high school baseball player in America? You're telling me I can't get this athlete because I need to get this on-base percentage dude who plays first base? I don't like how many guys are there that have a Maryland background that are qualified? I know that Simpkins is awesome, but otherwise, like, who's the guy?
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I should also give you this caveat that I didn't wear the uniform. I don't have the letter jacket. I've been doing the games for 26 years, and I think I understand sort of the psychological profile of a lot of Maryland fans. And I get why they would say that, but I think that's biting off your nose to spite your face. You really want to make yourself available to a wide swath of people, whether they went to Maryland, whether they didn't. That's just so self-limiting to take that approach. I'm respectful of a guy like Steve Blake, who stepped up on Twitter. He was a wonderful player, a great competitor. I'm respectful of that. I just don't think that you can make that hire that way. But that's my own opinion. Others may feel differently.
Okay, so to me, Chris, and again, you're closer to this than I am. I've watched from afar. Both my parents went there. I used to be a much bigger Maryland fan than I am, because Maryland told me with the move to the Big Ten and sort of football being this priority, we're trying to change. We're trying to be something different than we were. And that's sort of what I still see at the kind of the core is that is, I don't want to call it an identity crisis, but something close to it. To me, basketball kind of took a back seat wrongly for a while, and now it seems like it's coming back in this era of NIL and to keep up with the Joneses to the point that actually Willard was making. So where is the school now in terms of its athletic department and the overall mission here? If there's a pie, is the slice going to be big enough for basketball going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the changes they made, after Willard brought that to light. And I think that'll absolutely be in place for the next guy. And just as a really brief history lesson, I know there are a lot of Maryland fans that were wringing their hands for a long time about the move from the ACC. My guy, Kevin Sheehan, I had to tell him 5 or 6 years ago, you got to get over this. That we're in a far better place. You look at where the ACC is right now. But Danny, to your point, I mean, Maryland football could have a great, great season next year and still be the 6th best program in the Big Ten. We just, we don't have the tradition, the stadium size. And I know Locks, I know he's trying like hell to overcome all that. I just think that the realization has to be, who we are. And traditionally we've had some good years in football, but I mean, we've had a run in basketball. Or you look at what the success over the last 50 years or so, and it's pretty remarkable. Some of the talent, the players, the coaches that have roamed those halls.
Is the perception, and we're talking to Chris Knoche, color commentator at Maryland Radio, is the perception that they care more about football than basketball reality? I mean, that's what outsiders like. That's what perturbs along the question that Danny just asked you. Like, hey, you're a basketball stool. Act like it.
No, I don't. And so here's the deal. You've got 105 players on a football team, or whatever that number is. It's literally 7 or 8 times what you have in a basketball program, right? And so the piece of the pie is going to be bigger. And you also have to come to the realization. I get it. Football is the tail that wags the dog here. Football is the reason why the Big Ten has the kind of money to distribute to member schools. It's largely because of that football contract. But I do know also that there were 8, 9 Big Ten teams in the NCAA tournament. There will be a significant slice of that NCAA pie that goes to member schools as a result of that level of participation. I just think that some schools, Penn State to me is a football school, right? I mean, they've had middling success in basketball. Mm-hmm. There are very few schools really that do it all really well. And Michigan comes to mind. Ohio State sometimes, they've had some pretty good years in basketball, won some championships back in the 60s. I don't know if that's relevant now, but I just think you have to know who you are for sure. And I agree with you. I don't think that it's an inordinate amount to spend on football. I think it's, if I'm reading what I'm reading about the way they've sliced it seems like appropriate to me.
So, Chris, my last one for you is here. The timing of this, I think, is also really hard. You already mentioned it, right? Some of the candidates would have been great are off the marketplace now. But what about also player movement and some of those other things? I saw or heard a report that Rodney Rice has already entered the transfer portal. Going to be tough to kind of get guys back. Going to be tough to get guys in. This process needs to kind of go light speed, but you also want to do due diligence there. What about the timing for maybe this next coming season or two?
Yeah, so if I'm advising any player in this day and age, Danny, I'm telling them to go into the portal.
Yeah,
and the reason is it allows that guy to benchmark himself. You don't know what you're worth until you find out what other people are willing to pay you. That doesn't mean you're not going back. I can tell you, knowing those guys enjoyed Maryland. They had a really good time. They were prime guys on a really good basketball team. This doesn't mean they're not coming back at all. This is them kicking the tires, and I completely understand the way the system is set up. Hell, it'd be silly not to go out and see what they can get elsewhere. That doesn't mean they can't take it back to Maryland and say, listen, I want to stay, but you're going to have to hit this number because that's what Michigan just offered me.
No, that's well said.
Yeah, it's a good point.
I do think that this is just a massive setback, though. I have a hard time believing with the timing of his exit, the momentum that they had, that this is a 3-4 year kind of setback and crippler. Do you disagree with that?
I do, because I think that what we've seen over the last year or two is you can build a team in short order. I helped. Maryland did that in 1 year. I mean, they got lucky with an all-time great freshman in Derek Queen.
Yeah, you need another DQ walking through that.
You got another one of those, Chris?
Well, but they hit gold with Jacoby Gillespie, their point guard, who you wouldn't have been able to pick him out of a lineup 2 years ago at Belmont. So they did the work. You can turn things around. That doesn't mean you can automatically turn yourself into a top 10 team. There are no more 3 or 4 year plans. It's a 1 year plan, maybe 2 years at most, and then you redo that. That's just kind of where we are right now, sadly.
Chris, thank you, buddy. Really appreciate the insight, man. Thanks for this.
Hey, may your NFL rule changes all come true.
We need them, brother.
Bless you.
We got our shot every year for about 72 hours. We try to solve the world's problems. And this is
I
our
love it.
time.
By the way, and how good is that league, by the way, whatever that is, where they're like, we get the sense people may be talking about something else. Let's dangle some rule changes for the peasants.
Yeah, they need the help, right?
That's
they,
right.
They need to become more popular with those rule changes, for sure.
Poor league. All right, thanks, Knoche. Good
Thank you,
talking to you, pal. There's Chris Knoche, Maryland basketball on Grant and Danny on the Fan.